So what we'll see right now is, in fact, the key variation of the can line with b5 and queen b6. And so far we have seen the variations with knight b3 and also knight f3. Now I'd like to show you the system with bishop a2 that goes most frequently when black plays in the following way. I have chosen to present you a game that was played by two grandmasters, Alexander Kundin from Russia and Michael Rose from Germany, I think. And that game was played in the Tel Aviv Lost Autumn Open 2002. It's not really a fresh game, but in my opinion, it very instructively shows the ideas of this whole system. So after e4, c5, knight up to c3, and pawn at a6, both players really entered in that can variation in a little bit different order. So once a6 was played, and white did knight up to f3, black also came forward with the move b5. Okay, so what's the plan of the move b5? Well, here, black just want to get this bishop on b7 as fast as possible. And after b5 was played, d4, c6 to d, knight x to d, and e6, we actually have the key variation of the can system for black. So as soon as the move e6 was played in this position, white did the move bishop d3. Okay, and now we go with the main plan for white to develop his pieces as fast as possible, and then further on continue with castling on the short side, f2 to f4 is an idea, and immediately planning to attack on the king's side. Now after bishop d3, queen b6, we have seen that knight b3 isn't that strong, because when white's knight retreats, his activities on the king's side just lose in power. Also, knight f3 with the plan to attack in center and go with pawn up to e5 ain't that dangerous at all, because this pawn on e5 becomes a target, and yeah, well, black is receiving a quite comfortable position against this. And so after the move of bishop to d3, queen to b6, white goes with bishop up to a3, and then black plays the move bishop to c5. And now we see the plan. Once the move of bishop to c5 is played, black wants to counter white's fast development with an attack towards the center. In fact, if white just decides to play the passive move of knight c to e2, we'll look at this later. Black has an easy idea of knight to c6 and some other moves which he can propose, and white can hardly fight for advantage. Therefore, his main plan is to go with bishop back to e2, and once he moves away that bishop, the d4 knight is already secured. So bishop back to e2, knight up to c6 is the move for black, and we go into the main line already. Of course, the knight on d4 needs to move somewhere. It can't be kept on that square. It needs to move. But unfortunately, he has nothing else but the exchange. Because, you know, if he does not exchange, he's going to lose material. If he brings that back, then there will be bishop takes d3, and it's clear. Next move, black will recapture there. So white takes. And here we have a key position, which is kind of more active endgame. Because next what he can do is like castle on the long side. He can also propose rook h to f1 as an idea. His rook will be well prepared on the f line. And black has to play e5 at this point to counter the white pawns in the center. But having most of his pieces on the initial squares, I don't think that he will really have those great resources. Still, we'll look at that, but let me show you now what is the key plan of playing in this opening system. We go back right now to the position after knight x to c6, and we point our attention to d takes to c6, with which black avoids white from controlling the d4 square. So white takes there, black recaptures with his queen, and then when white plays the move of queen to d3, black simply continues with knight f6. And now we see that the simple idea that black has is to castle, and if he castles on the king's side like that, further on he might have the plan of going with e5 and bishop up to e6. And if that really happens, I just don't see any way for white to have advantage. Black's opening would be very successful. The main opportunity, which is to develop and get his pieces in tune, will be just excellent and already promoted. So therefore, after the move of knight f6, white decided to keen on developing his pieces quickly. So after castling on the long side, he has the plan to play g4, maybe queen g3, or even f4 might be an interesting option. So after long castles, black castled short, and white did f4. So now we see one of the typical positions of the Sicilian can variation. Once white plays his pawn on f4, his further idea, well, the most dangerous idea is to play e5. And if he promotes this pawn on that square, we see that there on the board we'll have a typical pawn structure with 4 to 4 pawns on the king side. But white's more advanced king side pawn will be definitely a much better one. And once the knight on f6 retreats, then you know, when I was studying these typical positions, I remembered one thing in particular, and this is that the e4 square is the one through which most of the white pieces are gonna come, like knight e4 and knight g5, and because of that e5 pawn, which is like a nail in black's position, most of the black pieces, or the strongest pieces, like the queen, the rook, the bishop, and knight, wouldn't have the chance to defend that well the king side. And this, in my opinion, is very important. So that's why as soon as the move f4 comes in, black's got to play e5. This resource should not be allowed. Now, of course, after e5, white has the chance to close with f5, and now the intention would be to go with g4 and possibly g5, advancing on the king side. Yet again, after the move of f5, black has some time. So I think that this was the most interesting idea which he used, and if you're studying the hand for black, you definitely need to know it. That's rook a7. The plan of this move is, of course, to transfer the rook from the 7th rank to the d7 square, from where it will propose an exchange to white's rook, and in the same time, it will help black to get some control of the d line. I mean, after rook e7 to d7, you can also go with rook f to d8. You see, and another trick is that black may also take advantage of the d4 square in the middle. He can play something like rook to d4 in a later stage, and in my opinion, his position will remain quite good. So let's see what happened in this game. Seeing rook a7, white understood that he has got to act quickly. So what he played was pawn up to g4, and now white is piling his pawn to go in g5. Okay, so g4, and then black played the move rook d7, queen f3, and then rook f to d8. Well, yes, so black's rook are really well prepared. He's got the intention to go with rook d4 next move. And in case of something simple like bishop d3, black has some maneuver of the knight, which will be quite nice in my opinion, like bishop d3, knight e8. So the knight from this square is coming to d6. It will be promoted then through b7 to a5. And from a5, it will have the excellent possibility to jump on the c4 square, put some difficulties against the white king, and there could be also queen to b4 that will move. So black will be definitely well prepared there. So this is the main plan. In fact, after rook a7, white did not want to leave that happen, and he played g4, rook d7. And once all this happened, okay, so rook f to d8, instead of going with bishop d3, white played g5. That's a more straightforward continuation. See, we now look at a position with opposite castled kings. What we have to know about those positions is that any time when there are opposite castled kings, each of the two players should try to advance the pawns in front of the opponent's king as fast as he can. Because if he does that, he's going to offer them like a sacrifice or even exchange them, and thus opening up some files and starting his own threads initially, faster. So after the move g5, black played in this case the move knight e8, and here we see the same plan. The immediate threat of the rooks would just help white to get even this knight for d1 and f2. So knight e8 doesn't exchange any pieces, and in the same time black has the intention to put the knight on d6, get it on c4, and so on. So white exchanged the rook, rook takes to d7, rook takes to d7. And what can I tell you about this position? Black isn't experiencing any problems. If white tries now g6, well, how do you think black can stop this? I think that you can just exchange and then push something like h6. That's pretty much it. Once h6 is played, there could be knight f6 as an idea. There could be a5 to b4, and I don't see what should be black's problem at this moment. So this is the plan. And after rook takes to d7 and rook takes to d7, white tried to push another pawn like h4, but you think that it's really nice? I think that it's just self-comforting, but nothing more than that. After a5, white needs to get that knight back because it will be threatened, and then a4 is coming in. So we see that here, whatever white does, he doesn't have any chance to open up files. f6 will be probably the answer to that to be a pass, or even g takes f and queen d6 because that pawn will be attacked. So white decided to offer now after h5, actually. So at this point, no, instead of going with the move of h5, white could have proposed an interesting idea associated with probably f6. I'm thinking about this point. This type of variation might be interesting, but when I look at it, I'm thinking about queen d6, f takes to g, and queen d2 check, which will help black to get much more active, and the knight has the immediate prospect for e6 and, of course, f4. So after h4, a5, knight d1, and a4, white decided to propose an exchange of the queens. An exchange of the queens with queen c3 might at least stop some plans of queen d6 or whatever. And of course, black just exchanged the queens, recaptures, and king f8. Now the king is piling to the center. Black wants to put it on e7, then knight d6 might be an interesting chance. White tried to block the pawns, but nothing so much can really happen. After a3, black played the move of rook to a7, and this is clearing the d7 spot for the black's light square bishop. And after king to d2, rook to a8, I think that this is much simpler. It's much simpler to play that kind of position. In fact, white played rook d1 first. This is what he chose in the game. And yeah, well, black just transferred the king forward. We know the king is an important piece here. So king e7. And after black's 24 king e7, bishop g4, black just stabilized on the king side. And now we see something important. Black's got enough amount of space on the queen side. Any kind of ideas that he'll have with knight d7 might be very important. In fact, further on, he can move with bishop d7, get the knight on the b7 square, and presumably even play b4. We see a4 is untouchable because of e4 hanging. And that could be very important, how black empowers pieces against white's central area. That's just a very important resource. So f6 may happen, and then after bishop to h5, knight d6. G takes f was in the game, g takes f, bishop e2, and as I mentioned, bishop d7. The preparation is complete. King d2, the rook moved back to a8, and further on, of course, the rook has good options through the g file. White tried rook g1, but as you can see, white is limited already. So after white tried king e3, bishop e8, knight back to d1, and pawn to c5, we see that black's pieces are quite comfortable. He's got the chance to play rook d8, and further on you can move even with b4 and so whatever. Well, I think that our opening discussion is now finished about this game. I think that the end game that happens from this game doesn't really make that big interest. Black's got a very convenient position, slightly better chances. White's pieces remain ineffective. And what I just want to make is like a short summary by going back and showing you this typical idea. So I move back to the move of bishop to e2, and now we see that Black's intention is to play knight c6, deal with the white central knight, and in the result of the exchange, he gets some space. Still, I want you to pay attention. Anytime when you get into that position, queen d3 is played, in your castle, Black needs to promote two ideas. First, this is to play e5. In no way Black should allow White to play e5 on his own and then start his own activities in the kingside. e5 is the first move, and then the second move is to transfer the rook through a7 to d7, which will limit White's space and certainly put some difficulties and put some delay to White's own actions on the king side. That gave Black a very comfortable position in the end, and the resources with a5 were just superior. Very nice option to play as Black against this main continuation.